My name is Siegfried Vösel from Fraunhofer IIS. So this is a VR session with the title Living in a Virtual World. So, of course, today we are still living in a real world, but maybe at some time you want to be in another world, and we want to try how you can achieve this. If you look to the July 2018 Gartner hype cycle diagram, you will see that virtual reality and augmented reality is now in the valley of disillusionment. That means the first hype is over. We have first high expectations. Of course, the quality of the head-mounted displays might be not so good as expected, so we need some more technological advances to get a better experience. And on the other hand, we need some good use cases which are convincing. And today we try to clarify what kind of use cases, what kind of improvements we can do for the virtual reality world. So the question now is, we have two presentations in the first hour from experts in this area. I want to keep the biographies short. I think you can read this in the program. So this allows us to have some more questions. For this, I want to start directly with the first presentation. If you are setting up a head-mounted display and you look to 360-degree movie, then you have to orient yourself. So you look around where you are and in which world you are. And if you switch to another position, of course, you have to do the same. So, and that's the reason why it's difficult if your scenes changes too fast. And in this first presentation, we will have an explanation how fast it can be and what are the results of these changes. The first speaker is Igor Gurzio. Igor is with Nokia for over 20 years and is now Bell Labs Distinguished Member of Technical Staff. He has contributed to 3GPP, MPEG, DNLA, IETF, covering also chair positions. He holds over 80 granted patent families and published more than 80 scientific papers. His current interest is, of course, standardization of immersive media technologies. Please welcome with me Igor Gurzio.
Thank you. Good morning everyone. This work was done in collaboration with Tampere University of Technology in Finland. There are two co-authors, Dmitry Monakov and Deepa Naik, and also with my colleague at Nokia, Henry Tolkoma. So it's about analysis of user exploration patterns during scene cuts in omnidirectional video. So the topic will be omnidirectional video, 360 video. The outline for today, so I'm going to talk about omnidirectional video, just a little recap, and then about scene transitions, which are the topic for this work, and then the results of two experiments we were running. Intra-scene transitions for the first experiment, and then for the second experiment, interscene transitions, and then some conclusions. So, omnidirectional video, we know it's a 360 spherical video. It's covering the whole sphere, and we often view this kind of video with head-mounted displays on our head. This type of videos require a lot of storage capacity because, of course, they are covering the whole 360, require more bits, and also more bits for streaming. There is one good thing which is related to how we watch this 360 video. We do not always, well, we can't watch with HMD the whole 360, but just a portion of it at any point of time. So most of the content in a streaming system is actually streamed but not viewed. So there is a trade-off, visual quality versus optimized streaming rates when we are doing streaming. And there are typically two types of systems. One that looks towards optimizing the visual quality, and this means streaming everything, 360 at the same quality, high quality, streaming everything, but it requires more bandwidth, versus trying to optimize the bandwidth in a typical so-called viewport-dependent streaming. And this is a more optimized system. We have tiles, for example, with HEVC, so we only stream those tiles that we are watching, but there are issues and challenges with delays and motion to high quality delay. So how long does it take for the system to react when I am turning to this position? And of course, depending how fast I do it, I'm requesting the system a certain performance. Now, evolution of 360 video productions. So we have seen many videos with a single camera that are giving content in 3 degrees of freedom, but one camera, the truth is that one camera is not enough. So we want to have more cameras for our content. So the industry is already moving towards a multi-camera scenario. And in fact, also the standards are moving towards multi-camera. The version 2 of the MPEG OMAF standard, so omnidirectional media format, will have support for multiple cameras. And in this standard, they are called viewpoints. Cameras, of course, when we have many cameras, there are switches between one camera and another, between one viewpoint and another viewpoint, but we have omnidirectional scene transitions in this case. Scene transitions are methods to connect shots of different cameras. So dissolves, wipes, cuts. We have seen many of these type in traditional video. And typically, there are 2 types of transitions. Intra-scene transitions. So in this case, the scene stays the same, but the viewing position is changed. So think about a football match. So there is a single scene, but there are multiple cameras around, but the scene is the same. This is an intra-scene transition. And then there are inter-scene transitions when the scene is completely different. So there is a complete scene cut. And an example could be cutting a scene from indoor to outdoor, or just giving the impression that time is passing, like in movies. So these are the 2 cases that we have been looking in our experiments. Now, in omnidirectional video, what happens is that normally a user is watching some video and then exploring, because the user wants to know what is around. So if there is a transition effect, a transition occurs, then what happens is that the user is like, oh, what's going on here? I want to know where I am now. So I want to explore a little bit to know maybe to the left, to the right, or more top or bottom, depending on what's the scene. I want to know what's going on in this scene. So this is giving a motivation for the user for exploring more. So that's why we are interested in this exploration range. So how much a user is exploring compared to a normal exploration of 360 video. So now, in a nutshell, what are our findings? And I will come back, of course, with results, but just to give you an idea what was our study. So we found out that the user exploration range increases after a scene transition. So you have a scene cut, and then the user is just thinking to explore more. That's the first information. The second information we found is that the user takes some time, some thinking time, before starting exploring after a scene transition. So we call this reaction time. So you have a scene cut, then very little, nothing happens, and then the user starts to explore. That's an interesting effect. And then, as a side effect of our experiments, we found that the exploration range of inter-scene transitions is generally larger than the exploration range of intra-scene transitions, which is generally larger than an average exploration range. So these are the relations that we found when it comes to exploration ranges in the presence of scene cuts and scene transitions. So our experiments were set up with a Samsung Gear VR head-mounted display with the Galaxy S8 phone. We had videos in equi-rectangular projection, 4K videos, HEVC videos at 30 frames per second without audio for these experiments. We were using viewport-independent streaming because we wanted to give a uniform quality everywhere without any type of reduction or quality reduction. And then in the first experiment, we used 3 clips of 1 to 2 minutes. The type of clips content was martial arts and nature. And there were 5 cameras. And the duration between the cuts was 10 seconds, and we tested this on 20 people. On the second experiment, which is the inter-scene experiment, we had 8 video clips concatenated one after another one, and we created a single output file that then has been watched by 20 people. The type of content was ranging from entertainment to adventure, military, sport category. This is giving an example of shots that we have been using for 2 experiments. That the 3 bigger frames, they represent the 3 sequences we used for intra-scene transitions, and then there are the 8 other frames that have been used for inter-scene transition experiments. We needed to have some metrics in order to measure the reaction of the subjects. And we observed the exploration range of the subjects after intra-scene transitions and inter-scene transitions. So the measure was in terms of exploration range, which is the difference, the yaw difference, the maximum yaw difference for a given time interval. The reaction time, which is the time between the scene transition and when the user starts actually exploring at a higher pace. And then also angular speed, how fast subjects explore the content. So let's get to the results. The first thing we wanted to understand is, for the first type of experiment, for intra-scene transitions, we wanted to understand, are the user watching the same things at the same time, or are they watching different things? So we gave no instructions to the user. We just said, please watch this video and at your own speed, and then watch the video where in the parts you are interested in. The interesting thing we found, it's given in this graph, is that users have been watching the same thing at the same time for about 92% of the time. In this example, which is the armor clip, we use a metric called the Similarity ring metric, which we developed, and it's explained in one of the references which are given in the paper. Imagine there is a ring. So there is a ring, and this is each one of these. Each one of these curves is like a rope, and if the rope goes through the ring, which is the content that has been watched by the people, by most of the people, most of the time, then it means that people have been watching the same thing at the same time. If the rope goes outside the ring, it means that the people are watching somewhere else. So calculating the data according to this metric, we can say that for this clip, people have been watching the same thing at the same time 92% of the time. This is for the armor clip, and similar results are also for other clips. And this happened without any instructions given to the user. And now the results about intra-scene transitions, so about exploration ranges and what happens. So we had scene cuts positioned here, where you can see this orange vertical bar. And then there are the interesting results, of course, when looking at this graph carefully. So first, we notice that the beginning of each clip is always exploratory. Of course, there is something new I'm watching, so I'm interested in exploring in any direction the content. So there is a lot of exploration in the beginning. Then we notice that after a scene transition, there is an increase in the exploration range. So there is a peak here. This is a scene cut. And then after that, there is a peak. So here is a scene cut, and here is another peak. Here is a scene cut, and then here is another peak, followed by this one. And the same happens here. Also, the speed is increasing. But also, we notice that after scene transitions, the subjects immediately slow down for some time. So here you can see that it's going down, and then the interest raises again, and then starts the exploration. Here again, there's a little kind of stalling period, and then the interest goes up. And here again, it goes down and then up. So this is what we call reaction time. And the reaction time, this is the way how we have calculated. Maybe I do not go into these details, which are explained very well in the paper. It's a paper actually which I suggest to read. It's 21 pages, so quite detailed. What we notice is this delay is about 1.5 to 1.8 seconds. So there is a time between 1.5 1.8 seconds for these sequences that the user is moving very little or not moving before getting interest in finding maybe the next interesting hotspot. And then there is the second experiment. So we try to repeat the same experiment for inter-scene transitions. So when there is a scene cut and the content is completely different. So here I want to just remember that we had 8 concatenated clips of different content. So the scene cuts were clear and the content was semantically different. Here we have a similar effect. Here we have the scene cuts in these positions. And then after a little reaction time, then there is, again, interest, and then exploration range increases. Similar effects is here and also in the other parts. But this is a bit larger. So there is an increase of 1 to 3 degrees for compared to intra-scene transitions in an interval of 250 milliseconds. So if you take a 1 second interval, it's maybe multiplied by 4 those numbers, so like 12 degrees or something like that. The reaction time also in this case is a little bit larger. So it's about 1.8 seconds. So on average, it's like 15% larger than the intra-scene case. So the numbers are, let's say, a bit bigger when we have a content which is with the inter-scene transitions. So that's also an interesting information for us. And the reason is that, of course, when there is a content from a different scene, like from indoor to outdoor, the surprise effect is bigger. So it makes sense because the surprise is bigger. It's not just the same sport event from a different camera for the same sport event, but it's a totally different scene. So if we talk still a little bit more about exploration ranges, so we also wanted to compare the exploration ranges between content watching without scene transitions, so where there is no scene cut at all, and during scene transitions. And there are actually quite big differences. So differences range between, we found between 39, 40, and 85% in the sense that there is an increase in exploration range between 40 to 85%. So if I have a content without scene transitions and compared with content with scene transitions, when I watch the content during scene transitions, my exploration range increases by 39 to 86%. So it's quite different, quite relevant as a difference. Okay, so these are the results, and I want to give some conclusions. So 5 points to summarize. First, the user exploration range increases after a scene cut, and it increases more for inter-scene transitions. So that's the first information. The second information is after scene transitions, there is some thinking time. So the users slow down their normal exploration range, and then they start to increase, to explore. And the reaction time we found is larger than 1.5 seconds. So in some cases, 1.5, in some cases, 1.8, maybe 2 seconds, depending on the clip, of course. It's content dependent. But there is always some reaction time, some thinking time before starting exploring at a faster pace. And then the number 4 is the exploration range increases by 39 to 85% during scene transitions compared to normal content watching without scene transitions. And then the last information, which is conclusion for everything, the exploration range of inter-scene transitions is larger than exploration range for intra-scene transitions, which is larger than the average exploration range of the users. So these are information that are very useful when we want to build a system. Think about a viewport-dependent streaming system. So if we have the information that after a scene cut, there is a little motion, and then there is a lot of motion, what the system can do to optimize that 2 seconds after a scene cut. Maybe there is some smart intelligence that can be put in the system to optimize the motion to high quality delay, or maybe something else. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much. I'm ready for questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Igor. We have some time for questions. So please say your affiliation and name and ask the question. Yeah, Meryl, please.
Yes, Merrill Weiss Group. You commented at the end about the implications for systems based on your information. Do you have any thoughts on implications for production and what's put into the content based on your observations?
I think it can be useful to have some indications for a system or for the client to have knowledge about where those scene cuts and scene transitions are located. If we think about stored content, giving that information to the client and knowing that information in advance could give some optimization points in order to optimize bandwidth, for example. So this is at least the the thought I have right now.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
Good morning, Ann Brooker-Grogan. I'm an independent researcher, and my question is, in your paper, do you break out the demographics of your experimental set for gender and age?
I think there is some information. Now, I don't recall. I think we had more males than females, and the age was around 30 and 50 years. I hope I remember right, but it's in the paper. This information is in the paper.
Okay, thank you. I'll follow up on that then.
Thank you.
Tom Coughlin. I was wondering, in addition to the analysis you did, where you're taking the metrics, did you do any qualitative talking to the people that did it? Like, did they find certain scene transitions more disturbing than others? Things of that sort, the kind of things that might lead people to think about ways in which they use the new media better.
No, we did not do that kind of experiment, that kind of question, but I think you are giving me nice, very good input. So thank you very much. I think maybe it's something that we will do next. Thanks.
Okay. So let me ask from my side a question. So did you recognize a kind of training effect for the reaction time? So it means if the people know that there are scene cuts and they expect they are coming, is there a reducing of the reaction time at some point?
The people were not aware that there were scene cuts.
Okay.
So we made people not aware of the scene cuts and about the content. So they were like watching videos for the same time.
Okay. Okay, so with this, I think we have no more questions. Thank you very much, Igor.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please tap the like button and also subscribe to our channel to receive notifications when we add new content. For more information about us, please visit SMPTE.org. We'll see you next time.